What's up, everyone? Welcome to the most positive pop culture podcast in the multiverse, Metalcore Nerds, the podcast that features members of your favorite bands as we explore their love of pop culture. I'm your host, Sean Ma, and today I'm joined by not a member of a band, but one of my close friends, a podcaster, a writer, editor-in-chief of Agents of Fandom, TJ Zwarych. Welcome to the show. Finally, we made it happen.
If you really want me to be part of one of your favorite bands, just let me know. I'll sing along. I'll sing along to whatever they're playing. I can send you a recording and be there with one of your favorite bands. But I'm so happy to be here. I am a big fan of the pod, big fan of what you do, and I enjoy working with you so much at the stuff we do over at Agents of Fandom. And I have been actively anticipating the first time I get to hop on. So I am very excited to get to chat about some television with you.
Yes, today we are continuing our looking forward to 2026 and looking back at 2025, and today we are ranking our top 10 favorite TV shows of 2025. And TJ and I have talked about this at length over at the Agents of Fandom because I have been lucky enough to co-host a lot of after shows with him over there, and 2025 was a banner year for TV, probably one of the best in our lifetime, if I'm being quite honest. There might be a few that may stand at the same level, but as far as I can recall, the amount of quality that was produced last year is unmatched, absolutely insane. And I think this year might have a hard time topping it, but we'll see.
I'm excited to compare our lists because I think they'll be fairly different just because I think if you really, just because of how many shows we've done this year, if you really tried to sit down and figure out what my list was, you could probably get pretty close. But I think we're going to have fairly different lists because I don't have a lot of, I think, highly critically acclaimed shows this year that I just either haven't gotten to or maybe I can respect, but they don't really fit my set of interests. And so really looking forward to seeing how ours might differ a little bit, because I definitely heavily weighed quality and how just straight up good I think the series were, but I mixed in a lot of personal taste as well and just what hit my favorites, what did I enjoy watching the most. So kind of a combo of the two blended together. I'm excited to compare.
I feel like that's what you should do. So I respect it. And I am also very excited to see how our lists differ as well. And whether this is the first time listening or if you're returning to the show, thank you so much for checking it out. If you're watching this on YouTube, hit that like button, comment what your favorite TV shows of the year were. And if you're listening to this on your favorite podcasting platform, subscribe there and hit the 5-star review. Helps the podcast continue to grow, helps more people find the show. And if you want your daily fix of Metalcore Nerds, you can find us on all social media at Metalcore Nerds. Now, before we get into our actual top 10, I want to get into some quick honorable mentions. Now, I watched, and I could have missed some, but I counted last night, and I watched 62 series from 2025. 62. Okay, so I think my top 10 list, I think that'll show the level of how much I really love these shows. Because if you get into the middle of that list of 62, they're all shows I really liked, but they just didn't reach that pinnacle of top 10. So for my honorable mentions, I had Your Friends and Neighbors. It's on Apple TV Plus, stars John Hamm. Great series. I recommend it very frequently to a lot of people. And season 2 is already coming out this April. So I was shocked to learn it was coming out so soon. But I'm very stoked to get back into that world. John Hamm is so great. And the basic premise is he's like a hedge fund manager who gets into some really big trouble. And then he goes and starts stealing from his rich neighbors, knowing that they won't really notice that he's stealing from them. That obviously doesn't really go as well as he plans. So it's the journey of that. An incredible show, and I'm super stoked to get back into it. The next one is All Her Fault. It stars Sarah Snook, Suge from The Bear, a bunch of other people. Dakota Fanning's in it also. And it was a limited series on Peacock. It had some of the most jaw-dropping twists I've seen in a series, and it just keeps getting crazier as it goes. And the finale is absolutely wild. That one I think is like a must-see. I told TJ not to watch it because I has to deal with a kid getting abducted. So I was like, I don't know, you're a dad. I don't know if you should watch it.
I'm gonna. It's on my list, and I actually I've just been seeing a ton of trailers pop up on I watched the first episode of The Paper the other day, and I don't have the Prime extension needed to watch it here in Canada. It's like Stack TV or something required, but you can watch the first episode or two with ads. before you have to
Oh,
subscribe. And so I
interesting.
watched the first episode. All Her Fault kept popping up as a trailer in every single one of
Yeah.
the ads, and I went. And my wife Ava kind of went, I don't know if I'm going to be able to watch that one, but I think I'm going to. I
Yeah.
think I'm going to. That'll be one I watch solo.
And then the last two I had a series called Smoke that was also on Apple TV Plus, stars Taron Egerton. And that show is just crazy. And it's based on a podcast series. And it got renewed for a season 2. And they wrapped up the story pretty well. So I haven't looked into the podcast series to see like if it's going to follow some of the characters, but kind of a different kind of thing. But I'm here for it. That also has a really good twist at the end that I did not see coming whatsoever. And seeing Taron Egerton continue to just be an incredible actor is amazing. I just love how at this point we've just seen him in so many different roles, and he always just knocks it out of the park. He's just so great. My last pick on my honorable mentions is this series called Mobland. It was on Paramount Plus. It stars Pierce Brosnan, Helen Mirren, Patty Constantine, Tom Hardy. It's a wild cast, and it's about like a mob crime family in London. It's awesome, super good. I don't think the finale stuck the landing as best as the rest of the season was, but it did set up for an interesting continuation, and I do believe it got renewed for season 2 at least. So I'm excited to get back to that, and it feels like a big return to form for Tom Hardy, which is nice. It's nice to see him be in something that's quality again. So that that one has been one that if you're into that kind of stuff, I definitely, and Guy Ritchie directed a bunch of it, and I know he's like a big producer involved in it. So if you're into that kind of mob-ish kind of stuff, Mobland is definitely one you should check out. But TJ, what did you have in your honorable mentions?
Kind of two tiers of honorable mentions. One of them is Ironheart from Marvel, a series that I didn't think was spectacular, but I still really enjoyed. Stick
Yeah.
from Apple TV, kind of the same thing. Not on the same tier as some of the top tier Apple TV shows, but it made me cry a couple times, made me laugh multiple
Yep.
times. And then I get to a tier where I'm genuinely upset that there wasn't room on my list for these, because some of these are shows that I just loved so much. One was Skeleton Crew from Star Wars, where again, this wasn't like a top tier show for me, but it was so much fun. It was just so sweet. We covered it on the Agents of Fandom podcast. A bunch of little kids in a galaxy far away working with Jude Law and some pirates, and it's just a blast. It's a lot of fun. Another one that I'm just so upset it didn't make my list was the new season of Invincible, where this is one of my favorite TV
Oh,
shows. And I won't go too deep into it just in case it happens to be on your list, but also I do know that I feel like most people know what Invincible is, based on the Robert Kirkman comic. Yeah, I don't need to explain heavily. Another one is a show you introduced to me this year when I binged the whole thing, and that was the new season of The Morning Show. Season 4 of The Morning Show was a 2025 release. Another one I really enjoyed. It took me a good half of the first season of The Morning Show, Jen Aniston, Reese Witherspoon, to actually get invested and to get hooked. Like I went in very skeptically and I was like, I don't know if this is a show for me. And then when it got me, it got me. It got me good, and
yeah.
I couldn't stop. I binged all 4 seasons in the span of a couple weeks, and season 4 of The Morning Show was a really great show. Two comedies that are very similar, and they really quenched a thirst for me that hadn't been quenched since New Girl. New Girl is one of my favorite sitcoms of all time. And two of those shows that really scratched that itch for me this year were Overcompensating and Adults. Two
Very similar.
very similar type humor. I think I preferred Adults a little bit more, but I really liked both of them. Two shows that have already been renewed for a season 2 that I can't wait to tap back into.
Yeah, those are all great shows. I really did enjoy Adults and Overcompensated. They kind of fell in that middle category of I really like them, but not enough to get there. Stick is one that'd probably be close to my honorable mentions, and The Morning Show as well. The Morning Show is very good, very good, and I'm just like kind of astounded at the level of quality they keep pumping out each season. I'm like, there's no way they can keep this going. And then the more I kept watching, I'm like, damn, they just keep it going. I do have Invincible on my list. It's near the bottom, so I'll talk about more once we get to it. But TJ, kick off your number 10. What do you got at number 10? Top 10 TV shows of 2025?
I did want to make sure I got at least one animated show on my list. And so this was torn between this one and Invincible as my 10th spot, but I went with Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man because I think it is very difficult with how, like, there have been so many Spider-Man cartoons, and there
Yeah.
have been some really, really good ones. There have been some not great ones, but there have been some really, really good ones, and some that a lot of people just feel can kind of never be replaced or never be replicated. And so it's tough to do something different that people will still like. And I think Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man did a really good job of that. I'm a lot more excited for season 2 than I think I was for season 1, because season 1, while it was good, it really sets the stage for some exciting things to happen in a season 2. And so 10 on my list. You can find it on Disney Plus. Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man is number 10 on my list.
That show surprised me as well because, like you said, it's such a beloved thing, especially in animation, and to kind of take a swing and do things a little differently and have it pay off is impressive. And I'm stoked to see more. Like I think the animation slate this year for Marvel is looking real good. So I'm excited to see where they go with that. My 10, I know this is a show you haven't watched, but it's the Rehearsal season 2. I had to put it at number 10 because as far as a TV show, it's kind of an unexplainable phenomenon of what the Rehearsal is. It's Nathan Fielder, and it's kind of documentary style, but I feel like parts of it are scripted. Some of the most impressive parts of it is that you don't really know what's real and what's not. Season 2 is all predicated on apparently pilots and co-pilots don't communicate with each other enough. And he is trying to find a way to prove that if they communicate better together, because it's kind of always random who's a pilot and who's a co-pilot together. It's kind of just like wherever you're assigned, and then you go, and it's not like you're with the same person every time. So he wanted to go and like submit a thing to Congress that, like, hey, if we did this, it'll cause less problems. But the way he does it is the most unconventional and crazy batshit way of doing it. And I just think it's the craziest thing I've watched all year. It's like absolutely absurd and absolutely wild. And I just implore anyone to watch it because it is so crazy. And you can watch season 2 without watching season 1. My number 9 is Invincible season 3. This show is so crazy, and I feel like it's like oddly slept on, especially in a time where like anime is so popular now. And this isn't anime, but it feels so anime adjacent. Like all my friends who are super into anime, I was like, you need to go watch Invincible. I was like, you would love it. It's got crazy fights. The plot twists are crazy. There's a million things going on at once. Like it checks all the boxes. The anime, the anime checks 1,000%. And I'm excited for this next season. The next season hit my most anticipated list for next year. Kind of how we got connected was from our mutual friend Fat Thor, because we were doing an Invincible after show together. And then when he started working with you guys, that got moved over to there. And then we all started talking Invincible together. Just hearing him talk about like the changes from the comics to the show, and how Robert Kirkman uses this as an opportunity to only enhance his story that he already told in a different medium, I think is so incredible. The voice cast is like the most stacked thing of all time. Loved Invincible season 3. Super stoked for more. It seems like we're just going to get it year after year after year, which is really nice. I love seeing seasons be able to get produced yearly, and it seems like we're getting back to that with a lot of series, which is really nice.
For my number 9, this is one that did not do as well critically as I think necessarily the creators would have hoped. But I think a lot of that is just in the social media day and age that we're in. If people aren't getting exactly what they want, they're gonna think it's bad, and they think if there are changes, the changes have ruined what they love about the characters. And I actually think there's a couple shows that I could put in this vein, but the one that I'm gonna be going with, do you have season 2 of The Last of Us on your list?
I do not. That fell. It's kind of in like the 20-ish range of my list. I still very much enjoyed it.
Yeah.
But
This one was hard to put on over Invincible, over the morning show. Like there were a couple others that I considered in this spot, but The Last of Us season 2, I think ultimately connected in some ways that those shows didn't. Like the highs of that show are just so incredible, which obviously if you haven't seen it yet, I won't dive into what a lot of those highs are because they're major spoilers, but
yes.
don't think necessarily the changes that they made from the game are bad. I think they're different, and I like
Yeah.
how the game is, and I wouldn't want to change anything within the game. But I think for a television adaptation that is different, they're just telling the same story in a bit of a different way. I don't mind it at all, and I really, really enjoyed The Last of Us season 2.
And I think there's a lot of massive potential for season 3 to kind of win people back that may have gotten lost of it, which is crazy because I feel like critical reception, I feel like mostly like general audience reception was more negative because the first reviews for it were very high
Yeah,
from what I remember. So I was kind of shocked and the second episode, which again, not going to reveal what happens in that second episode. I do think that's one of the best episodes of TV from last year for sure.
yeah,
That episode is so good. And the way they changed things from the game, but still were true to that moment in the game, I thought were beautiful and amazing. And I like it. That episode is seared into my brain probably forever. It's a very, very good episode TV, very brutal episode of TV for sure. My number 8 is Paradise, the Hulu series starring Shirley K. Brown, coming from the creator of This Is Us, which it is very different from This Is Us. When I tell people that, they're like, "Oh, I don't know about that," and I'm like, "Don't worry, it's it's not anywhere near the same. Yes, it does get emotional, but not as emotional to where you're like, I want to cry every episode." So it's a very different type of show. And this one, I even kind of want to toe the line because if there's still people who haven't watched Paradise,
yeah,
I don't really want to give away the exact premise of it because the marketing, I applaud the marketing so much because I watched it because of Ryan Coteros of Agents of Fandom's review of it and him posting about it on Twitter. I'm like, oh, this sounds really cool. I'm gonna check it out. And then that first episode just subverted my expectations so hard. And I became that guy after that, being like, you gotta watch this show. And I was like, if the twist at the end episode 1 works, you're gonna be in for a great ride. If it doesn't work, maybe the show's not for you. But man, what a great show. What a surprising show. That's the things that makes these lists so exciting to me is yes, there's a bunch of things that I kind of thought would be on this list, but there's also a lot of things that I did not expect to have on my end of the year list. And this was definitely one of them. And season 2 comes out just in like a month and a half. So very excited to get back into that world. 100%. Do you have this on your list?
Paradise is higher up on my list. It's at number
Cool.
4. And so I'll
Nice.
dive into it now and we can kind of just like skip past it when we get there. But this was one of my
Okay.
favorite shows of the year. I too watched it because of Ryan's review. I had no idea what was going to happen going in and it just hooked me. It was one of my favorite week to week experiences of the year because I love a puzzle box. I love a puzzle box show
Mm,
that pops me a mystery in the first episode and then slowly unravels as the season goes on. That is one of my favorite types of television. And so really, really liked Paradise. Sterling K. Brown, I think, gives one of the very best performances of 2025. Movie,
he's the best.
TV, period. I think he's just so, so incredible in this show. And the mystery is really, really strong as well. I have this one at number 4. For my number 8, I'm wondering if maybe we save this one for later on because I think it'll be higher on your list, and that is Pluribus.
Yes, that is higher on my list.
So I will drop my number 7. I'll drop my number
Okay.
7, and we can hit Pluribus when we get to it on yours.
Okay.
And that is Gen V season 2. I thought this show was so, so good. I love the boys. I like Gen V more than the boys. It's, of course, the spinoff where they got their college age kids at Godolphin University. And I find their stories even more interesting than the main stories that we get in the boys. I love the cast. I love the characters that they give us and how they are tying it in to
Yeah.
the boys' final season. And I think Hamish Linklater as kind of the villain in that season is one of the best villain performances of the entire year of television. It is just so, so good. I know you, Sean, watched this with me. Like we covered this on the Agents of Fandom podcast. If you're a fan of the boys and you have not watched Gen V, I really recommend you give it a shot.
Yeah, I agree. This one didn't make my list, but I did very much enjoy this season. And I enjoyed the first season too. And I will agree with you. I feel like the characters are so much more easy to connect with. And I think it's because it's kind of like a blend of the two opposing sides in the boys, where you almost look at almost every soup in the boys. And obviously that changes as seasons progress. but a lot of them you look at them and like these people suck. And again, that's not everyone, but for the majority it is. In this one, you really do see like how these kids are put in this system that seems like it's something else, and they realize the reality of it and they do something about it. And the way they kind of blend in their powers with like real trauma is so interesting. And I did too love how they kind of started connecting the dots and really setting up for the final season of The Boys. And I do think that show has helped like reignite the hype for the last season of The Boys. And I do think it gives it such a chance to make the last season stick the landing, including these characters, which these characters weren't, I don't think were even in the first trailer, but there's no way they're not going to be included. That would make zero sense. I am very excited to see how that all plays out. And it was a very good show. There was just something about it that nothing about it was like bad to me, but there was something about it that didn't bring it to that next level where I'm like, oh, this is one of my favorite shows of the year. Really enjoyed watching it, and it like sucked me in. I was kind of late to it and we kind of binged it until near the end. Then we were, I think, week to week for a couple weeks, but great show. Really, really great show. And I do hope in the wake of The Boys, we can get a season 3 of Gen V. I think that would be great if they could continue this show somehow. I don't know what that would look like. I don't know how you do it, but I would very much like to see that happen. My number 7 is It Welcome to Derry. And this, my 7 and my 6, it's kind of like what you talked about earlier. I kind of picked my number 6 as in something that I liked it more. We'll get into that of the why, but It Welcome Derry, I was very stoked about it. I liked the movies a lot. I think the series is so much better than the movies because it gets to take its time and really dive into the lore of it and Pennywise. And having this 1960s backdrop was really cool. The pilot in this one is also, it's up there with Paradise and Pluribus as like one of the best pilots to come out last year, and I think in recent time, because they do something so shocking in the first episode of that show that it's one of those moments where you're like, was that a dream sequence? Are they just going to like say that was all a dream? That's how crazy the ending of the first episode of that is. But the way they tie everything together with the movies in this series and the way they set up for future seasons, because Andy Muschietti, who did both It movies, they want to do 3 seasons, and they all focus mainly on a different year that's part of that 27-year cycle where Pennywise comes to life and feeds and terrorizes this poor small town in Maine. And just like the way they explain why he's in Derry and just different things about Pennywise they reveal in this series, I thought were so cool and so well done. And like I was talking about earlier, there's been so many shows where they start out so strong, and then the last few episodes you're kind of like, "Ugh, that's not as good as what we set up here," and it bummed me out. And this was the opposite. I think they totally stuck the landing with the last episode and the way they tied everything together. And they haven't announced, I don't think yet, a season 2 for it, but I know HBO is kind of weird and they like wait and then they drop like a bunch of renewals at once. So I have to know it's coming because I believe it's one of the biggest shows they've had numbers wise, like competing with like The Last of Us and Game of Thrones. So there's no way they're not going to renew this. They would be so dumb to not renew this. Bill Skarsgård returning as Pennywise, which I did watch an interview and he was kind of skeptical about returning because he thought in his career he kind of got out of being like known as the Pennywise guy. But once he met with Andy and kind of saw the vision for what the series could be, he was like, I got to do this. What an an iconic horror performance. Bill Skarsgård as it Pennywise. So good. That's my number 7 is It Welcome to Derry. But my number 6 is Stranger Things season 5.
I have this higher.
That makes
If
sense.
we want to save it, I have it higher.
Okay, we'll save it. Then I'll go to my number 5 because you mentioned this earlier. My number 5 is Pluribus, the new Vince Gilligan show, Rhea Seehorn starring. Obviously, you've probably seen the buzz about it somewhere because it's been a very highly acclaimed show, and I think for a very good reason. It's a very different kind of show. It is a very Vince Gilligan show, but with a sci-fi twist to it. It takes its time. It's a very much a mystery box, and we still don't have all those pieces of that mystery box. They did put some pieces in there as the season went along, but it's really about character. That's the main driving force of this series. Rhea Seehorn as Carol Sturka is an iconic character, and she finally won her first major acting award She won the Critics' Choice Award for best lead actor in a drama series, and I think it's the first of many. She definitely should have got some for Better Call Saul. She didn't even get nominated until some of the last seasons, which is like criminal to me. But the whole Better Call Saul debate with awards is one a tale as old as time. They're like the most nominated Emmy show ever that has never won. It's like 48 nominations with 0 wins or something. It's like absolutely absurd. It's crazy. But I think this is going to be the show that starts winning awards, which is wild because I know some of the awards are going to be pitting Severance against Pluribus, which is like they are very similar in tone to each other. They're both on Apple TV Plus, which is really funny. It's amazing. I was so enamored by this show, so sucked in by this show. We obviously did an after show on it in Agents of Fandom, and the conversations this show elicits are so awesome. And I feel like so important because it's one of those shows where you can take so many things from it and none of them are wrong. They all kind of tie back to what this show is really trying to do. And I just think it's such an interesting original show. And I am so stoked for more. I have no idea. I think it's gonna be 2027 until we get season 2, which is a bummer because I feel like it ends on a note where you're like, man, I really wish I had season 2 right now. I want to see where they go with this. I want to see what's next. I need to know. But yeah, so that is my number 5.
Pluribus was 8 on mine, but if it was based on quality alone, it certainly would have been higher. That was one that I really, really liked. There was just some other things that I had to put above it from pure enjoyment. I think the biggest thing holding Pluribus back, Vince Gilligan loves himself a slow burn. And these are great this is great slow burn storytelling. But the difference is just how television is presented in today's day and age. And so I saw a stat that there was like over 60 episodes of Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul each released in the span of time of before we'll get season 2 of Pluribus. And that was just wild to me of like, we've talked about it a lot on this show, on just this podcast already, of it's so cool when a show's like running it back immediately and giving us a season the very next year. That used to be the norm. Now it's the exception, and we love it when it happens, but it used to be the norm. I feel like Pluribus kind of needs to be one of those shows. It needs to be one of those drop in every year type television shows.
There's so much content out now and there's so much quality content out now. I feel like unless your show is kind of like a water cooler TV show, which I feel like that's such a rarity. Yeah. And I think one that's at the top of my list is one of those. I just feel like it's impossible. You have to be in the conversation. You have to be remembered, or you kind of just get replaced by something else. And that makes it very, very hard. So if they do get into that mode where they can start doing that, because I know Vince Gilligan has a pretty good plan of where he wants to go with the series, at least for like I think the first 3 or 4 seasons. I would love if they can make that work.
Is it about AI? Is it about capitalism? Is it about social media? Is it about fascism? Yes. And it's just like it really depends on how you want to interpret everything. My number 6 is Daredevil Born Again. Daredevil Born Again is a show that I just loved so much because I love the character so much. We brought up Charlie Cox, or I'm bringing up Charlie Cox now, but we brought up Adults earlier. He has one of the funniest scenes I have seen in television in a long time in Adults. But in Daredevil Born Again, I was just so happy to see this show come back. There are a lot of patchy Frankenstein-y issues in season 1 of that show because they had a show that was almost done filming and then they totally revamped it and said, screw this plan that we were going to do. We are going to make it totally canon to the original series. We are going to basically make this a revamped season 4 of the original Daredevil series on Netflix. And all of that is going to be canon, which wasn't originally going to be the case. And so they stitched it together. They kept some of the old stuff. They mixed in some new stuff. And you can't tell from a storytelling standpoint that these were 2 different stories, but you can tonally. You really can tell tonally that like these are very different episodes. And I think in a longer season, you wouldn't have been able to tell that much because there are side quest tone changing episodes in long seasons of television all the time. It was just in, the streaming era style of television that it was a little bit jarring at times. Having said that, there is no show on my list that has a second season coming that I'm more excited for the second season of than this show. even my number one on my list. I'm more excited for season 2 of this one because the creative team is locked in. The cast is locked in. The story is locked in. We got the return of the Punisher in the first season, which is led to his own special presentation. He's also going to be in the new Spider-Man movie. This season, we already know it's been announced we're getting the return of Jessica Jones, and we're probably going to get some of those other Netflix characters coming back too. I find that so exciting. Oh, yeah. I can't wait to see the Disney bank account behind this show going forward with some really strong storytellers who are going to be including the things of the past and mixing in the MCU of the future. And I'm really, really excited for season 2 of this show.
Yeah, season 2 has so much potential. It didn't make my most anticipated list, but it was on there. If you listen to my episode, it's on there. And then I bump it out because there's one I forgot. There's a couple I forgot about that were coming out.
For my number 5, I'm wondering if maybe you have it higher on the list, and that is The Studio.
I don't have that on my list.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. My number 5 is The Studio. I think it was probably the funniest show of 2025. I thought what Seth Rogen put together with this show was just so unique, so incredible. Not unique in the sense that the idea was totally new. I feel like there was another show that just recently came out that was kind of similar, but maybe was it a franchise, something like that. But this one I just thought was so good. It was really meta. They got these wild guest performances from so many megastars playing caricatured versions of themselves. I thought it was unique, fresh, and the funniest show of 2025.
I also really like this show. The finale. This is also another one where the finale, I was like, I feel like they got too lost in their own sauce, and it's hard because I don't feel like it's a show it's not narratively driven. Yes, there is kind of like continuing bits throughout the season, but the show is really about. It's like very episodic. It's not really this overall narrative. Yes, there's a point to the whole season, a point to the show, and like the Kool-Aid thing is kind of like the glue of the whole season and everything. But the way they ended it just feels like it's already a very meta show. And then they added like an extra meta layer on top of it. That was like, it kind of pulled me out at the ending. I'll put The Studio in the category of these kinds of projects. The Studio, White Lotus, Knives Out. I love watching them. They're always great. I will watch them until they stop making them, but they never reach the echelon of my favorite things. I would watch 20 seasons of this show. I think it's so well made. I think it probably is the funniest show I watched this year too. Just don't think I loved it as much as these other series on my list. Getting to my number 4. My number 4 is Task, HBO show from the creators of Mayor Easttown, Mark Ruffalo. What an incredible show. This is another like surprise for me this year where I was stoked for it. I loved Mayor of Easttown. It's a very good series. Everyone who's kind of on this Task train, I'm like, you need to go back and watch Mayor of Easttown. Apparently they're in the same world. There's no like overt connections other they're in the same general area, and it's a very similar tone, obviously. That one is more of a whodunit. This one's more of like, what's going on, but it's 2 paths parallel and they finally diverge. But there still is like a very big mystery, a crime thriller element to it where there's more information you find out as you go along. But it's such an incredible series. I was shocked to hear it's getting a season 2 only because I thought it was going to be a limited series, just like Mayor of Easttown. But I'm so stoked it's getting a future season. And it's a show that continued to get better as it went along. There's so many shows where it's like you see these kind of main characters who don't interact for a while, and then they finally have that moment where they interact. And I think this is one of the best examples of that ever. And it's just a conversation in a car, and it is so well done and so beautiful. By the end of the show, it got me so hard because there's this really like emotional family kind of subplot with Mark Ruffalo's character that's done so well. It's like teased throughout the season, and when it all culminates by the end, you're like, damn. And it's another show because I feel like this has been such a problem in the streaming era. We get to the penultimate episode and they're like, man, I don't know how we're going to wrap this up. Like everyone said that a million times over and over and over. When this got to its penultimate episode, I was like, that could have almost been the finale and I would have been fine with it. Did it leave some things kind of untied or whatever? But like, I was like, I feel like I would have been satisfied with that. But then the finale comes and it's just like a punch in the face of amazing television. Such a good season of TV. I'm not the only one to share this sentiment. Anyone who's watched the show, it sings its praises.
My 4 was Paradise, which we already talked about. My 3, which you had earlier on the list, is Stranger Things. I think Stranger Things is, from a plot and cohesiveness, and even at times some dialogue standpoint, the worst show on my whole list for season 5. For season 5 specifically, hitting you in the feels and getting the emotional beats right and completing a story, it's number 1. And so like it is not as polished of a product as some of these other projects on the list. I think like objectively from a television storytelling, quality of the script, quality of the cinematography, everything, it's not maybe the highest on the list. But there hasn't been a show this year that made me feel the things I felt watching Stranger Things.
Same.
We are wrapping up the story we've been telling for the last 10 years. Specifically, the conclusion of this season of television, which concludes a story that is being told for the last 10 years, that has been one of the biggest shows of the streaming era, that has been such an important part of so many people's lives. It hits number 3 on my list just because of how well they landed the plane. Right at the end, the epilogue to this show, without spoiling anything, the epilogue to this show is everything I hoped for and more. It was just so incredible.
Beautiful ending to a series. We talked about this at length over at the Angels of Fandom, and I stated I think it's one of my favorite series finales just because of that 40-minute epilogue. I did just see CM Punk talk about it and echoed a lot of our sentiments of how they thought it was poetic and beautiful and serviced character overall. And that's very important. And he went on to the thing that we've been talking about so much, is that people get this idea of what they want. And when they don't get that, they automatically hate it instead of accepting the story that's being told. And I do think it's a very big problem with how people consume media nowadays. But besides the point, it hit my number 6 because, and again, it's like, I think Welcome to Derry is definitely the better season of television if you really boil it down as like a season of television. But the fact that this was the culmination of something that's been so big, probably one, I don't think there'll ever be a show like Stranger Things ever again. This worldwide phenomenon that was an original idea by these two brothers that blew up and captured a moment in time that I just don't think I see anything doing the same thing. And like you said, no other series on my list, even the top of my list, has emotionally affected me the way this series did, especially this last season. I think it was so beautifully done. The emotional moments hit so hard, not even just in the finale, in the season as a whole. And that's what makes me love it. Again, it's a show about nerds who get together to fight these monsters that come from this bridge between other universes. And they also learn along the way they got monsters inside, and they team together. And through growth and friendship and family, they learn how to overcome both kinds of monsters. And to me, that is so beautiful. And we need more stories like that. And I think it's so important that we have stories like that. And the way that they culminated in a true coming of age story was so beautiful. And I think the last scene is so impactful and so great. And that's why I made it so high on my list. Again, yeah, it's number 6 of my top 10. It's number 6 of 62 series of this year. That's high. My number 3 was Andor season 2.
That's my number 2.
Perfect. The thing that bums me out about the show has nothing to do with the show other than it's so good. I'm so sad that Star Wars will never be this good ever again. That's so sad. It is easily the best written Star Wars property ever of all time. Even, and I mean written. Like, obviously the concept and the execution and Empire Strikes Back is, kind of is this moment of time of the real twist ending, like it's one of the first in like modern pop culture that really did it. What George Lucas pulled off with Star Wars in general is you can't deny it. It's incredible, and it's still going, and people are still adding stories to it. And I think that's amazing and it's such a special thing. But what Andor pulled off, especially in the second season, I just wish the release schedule was a little bit more. What was it? 4 episodes, right? Three chunks of 4. That's a lot to take in. That's like 3 hours of content at once. You're like, hey, 9 o'clock on a Tuesday night. here's 3 hours of Andor to watch. Like that's so much to take in. I think that was my only qualm with it, and that's nothing to do with the actual story. This show's so good. The acting, the set pieces, the story it's telling. It's sad it's so relevant nowadays, but that's the thing with fascism. It always ends up being relevant to someone. I think the ending scene of this is super impactful. I was like in awe of the ending scene of this series. Obviously, not to spoil anything if you live under a rock and have not watched Andor, or it's just not for some people. You know, like this kind of show isn't for some people, especially if you're into a certain kind of Star Wars story. Then maybe it's not for you because it is definitely the least Star Wars feeling from just like a tone aspect, but it still is so Star Wars. It covers a lot of ground and a lot of important stuff. There's like, if you're a real big Star Wars nerd, it pieces some together some pieces that weren't there before, and I think that's really cool, especially with Mon Mothma. There is an excellent oneer in one of the Mon Mothma episodes that was great. I was like, I'm watching a oneer in a Star Wars movie or a Star Wars property. Cool, that's so awesome. But yeah, I adored Andor. I thought it was so great, and it's been it's had a firm spot at the top of my list ever since it dropped, and it has not really moved at all. To be honest, I think it's from the release schedule. I think it's been at my number 3 spot and has not moved all year. So that's a testament to the show as a whole. Just great A stuff.
Yeah, to piggyback like some of what you said at the beginning, I think the highs in this season were higher than even season 1, but the
Yeah.
release schedule, and not just the release schedule, but the time jumps. The time
Mhm.
jumps between each of these 3 stories that were included within the series. Like I know it was a case where like Tony Gilroy was done after season 2, like that was it. That was all we were getting from him from this, but I just really felt like this should have been drawn out more. Like, instead of
Yeah,
time
it's
jumps,
definitely
just
good.
give me the whole story. I wanna see it all. I wanna see
Yeah.
I wanna see Cassian and Bix hanging out a little bit more, like, actually give me the whole thing, but in
Right.
terms of the importance of the story, I think thematically, there's nothing more Star Wars than Andor. Obviously, there's nothing less Star Wars than Andor when you think of, like, the action and the Force and the lightsabers and things like that. It's the least Star Wars thing that they've ever made. But in terms
Right.
of the themes of resisting against fascism and maintaining hope in the face of darkness, it's the most Star Warsy thing they've ever done. And I
True.
think the Mon Mothma speech towards the end of the
Ooh.
season is one of the best scenes in all of Star Wars, one of the most important scenes in all of Star Wars, one of the most relevant scenes to our real life. And this is also like a really important project for me personally, where I got to go to Toronto. We had a red carpet for the new season. I got to interview Genevieve O'Reilly, who of course plays Mon Mothma. I got to talk to Stellan Skarsgård, who plays Luthen, and that was like one of the biggest interviews that I've ever had. It was a really, really cool time.
My number 2 is The Pitt, which obviously, as we're recording this, new season starts tomorrow, which is so exciting. Again, it's like kind of the exception to the rule. We're getting a season of The Pitt every year, and it's hard because it ends up in the same categories as like a Severance, as like a Pluribus now that that's in the conversation of awards, and it definitely did, I would say, upset a lot of Severance wins. It won Best Drama Series. Noah Wiley won for Best Actor. But this show was another surprise for me. One of the shows where I started, and then as it went along in like the first or second episode, Sam usually sits next to me and like when we're chilling at the end of the day before we go to bed, and we're sitting on the couch, and she's usually reading and I'm usually watching a TV show or a movie or whatever. And it's one of the shows where she put down her book and just got locked in. And she's super stoked. Like even the other day, she's like, "Wait, does it come out tomorrow?" And I was like, "No, Thursday." She's like, "Oh, okay." The whole premise of it is it takes place in this ER in Pittsburgh. Each episode is an hour of their shift. So the entire season is one shift in this ER. And it is just incredible. It is super graphic. Everyone has said is the most like medically accurate TV depiction of a hospital like ever done before. Noah Wiley came from ER. That's what he's really mostly known for. And apparently this was supposed to be originally an ER spinoff. And then somewhere down the line, they wanted to make it different. They wanted to make it more serious, more dramatic. They didn't want these kind of cliche romances built in. Everything feels so real. And I think that's why the show has become so popular, because it feels relatable. It is like anxiety inducing. Like if you like The Bear, I think you would like The Pit, because it has that same feeling of just like pure anxiety the entire time. And it just goes and goes and goes and goes and goes. And it does have nice quiet moments, nice, very big dramatic moments. But again, it doesn't feel like grandiose. It feels very rooted in real life. And I think that's why it's so impactful. And again, I'm just super excited for season 2. Season 2 centers around 4th of July weekend. And I can only imagine what 4th of July weekend in an ER looks like. It's probably going to be really, really crazy. And I know the early reviews, or a lot of people are touting it, that they did it again. It's great. So I'm not shocked there, but I am very stoked. This is going to be a show that I can look forward to every single year. That's really exciting. And I love The Pit so much. We're down to number 1. I'm guessing it's both Severance season 2.
Severance kind of felt like the first show we really covered together. You know, we had Rachel Leishman on with us, and I think she was technically my co-host for it, and you just hopped on a lot.
Yeah, I was on quite a few episodes because I think
Yeah.
you knew how much of a Severance fan, like fanatic,
Yeah.
I was.
Yeah, and I just felt like Severance was one of the first things we shared, in not just like podcasting, but like Severance, I felt like was a real blooming time in our friendship. And it kind of switched from like work colleagues who have the same interest to like, no, this is fun. I just want to like, let's just talk about shit all the time. And it was such a good show. It was like you kind of mentioned earlier on, it became a true water cooler show where you could go up to, I mean, both of us work from home. We're not at a water cooler, but it was just like, you could go out and talk to people and be like, Severance, right? And they'd be like, oh, I haven't watched the new episode yet. Don't say anything. But what do you think about this? Why are there so many goats everywhere? It just was so good. Week to week, we were all asking, what the hell is going on? What is going to happen next? Adam Scott is really becoming one of my favorite actors on the planet. I just love him so much. Not even just actors, but like people in the industry. Of just like, I've listened to him on so many podcasts recently where I love in the Fast and Furious movies, and he was on a marathon for the How Did This Get Made podcast, breaking down all of them. And I just had so much fun listening to that. It has some real hard hitting emotional moments at the end of the season. And it was pretty close to a perfect season of television.
It's one of those shows where, again, I think episode 7, Cheeky Bardo, is one of the best. I think is one of the best episodes of TV I've ever watched in my life. I've watched it numerous times. It reminds me very much of Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind in a lot of ways, but totally different at the same time. I think this season finale is one of the most impressive season finales I've ever seen, of where it takes everything that's come before it and culminates it in such a perfect way, but still leaves enough to where you're like, I need season 3 now. I need it now. And I know the creator Dan Erickson I think he teased at the Critics' Choice Awards of how they, like he said something like, the feeling I got when I wrote the season's finales of season 1 and season 2, I've been feeling that through the entire writing of season 3. And I'm like, that has me so excited. Holy shit. And like, it's one of those shows where you're like, you've no idea what's coming next. And like, I'm just so excited to see where season 3 goes and what kind of journey it takes us on. And like you said, it was such a water cooler show. Like, I've never talked to people in real life about a show more than that show ever. I've said this numerous times, but so much so that Sam refuses to watch it because she's heard me talk about it so much. And she's like, fuck this show. I don't want to hear about it anymore. She did buy me this awesome Lumen crew neck sweatshirt for Christmas though. So she appreciates my love for it. She just does not want to partake in it, which is fair. It's totally fair. But yeah, I can't wait for season 3, which again I think is 2027. I think they'll probably start filming sometime this year. With that update from Dan Erickson, I feel like they're very deep into the writing process of it. So I'm so excited to get back to that world and find more secrets about Lumen. And I do think it's one of those shows in the streaming era where it's kind of, transcended the zeitgeist and become a phenomenon, which was not the case in season 1. But the hype leading up to season 2 was so palpable and so exciting, and all the stuff they did in the marketing wise was so cool. The like New York City subway, like installations with the real actors in it and stuff. I thought it was so great. And like Apple is selling versions of Lumi computers now. Like it's so wild. So I'm so excited to season 3, I'm very interested to see if the hype continues. Like we said before, with the kind of landscape of things kind of starting to become yearly releases. Not for everything, but it's becoming a more common occurrence in these last few years. And I had to wait 3 years for season 2. I was left on that cliffhanger from season 1 for years. And a lot of people didn't, they kind of got into it leading up to season 2
Yeah,
or during season
I
2.
binged it right before season 2 started.
Yeah, so I was hanging on that for years. So, and it's the same thing with season 2. It ends in a very similar fashion where you're like, fuck, I need to know what happens. But I think that makes an exciting TV show. The fact that you just can't wait to get more of it. So, what more do you want from a TV show? And I truly do think this could be one of the best shows of all time if they continue at the same quality they have for these first 2 seasons. I don't know how long it's going to go. A lot of creators kind of come out and be like, yeah, I have X amount of seasons planned for this, but they've been very coy about that. And I think that's fine. And that's important because I think it's a show where they can kind of, take it piece by piece. I'm sure they have like touchstones of things they want to do eventually. I don't think it's like a fully fluid plan, but I think it's a very malleable path that they can draw in, and however many seasons they want to go, I'll be there day one.
Couldn't agree more. Like, we talked about a couple shows that have very similar tones to Severance, with Paradise, with Pluribus.
Yeah.
And I think Severance is the one that, well, both of those do these really good. Severance pretty much perfectly toes the line between, we're going to sprinkle in telling you some stuff going on to keep you interested, and then
Yeah.
remind you, you don't know shit. You don't know
Yep.
fuck all. We're going to surprise the hell out of you, but we're just going to dangle this carrot in front of you to make sure you're engaged. And I think Severance really toes that line perfectly.
Well said. That's exactly what they do. And yeah, we'll be sitting here waiting with bated breath for season 3 of Severance. But TJ, these are some good lists. They're varied, a little similar. We ended in the same note, which is nice. That feels good. But thank you so much for finally coming on the show and doing such an important episode with me.
Thank you so much. I'm very happy to be here. I would love to come back at some point in the future, either as a guest, or if you have one of my favorite bands on as a co-host.
Okay,
Either one,
deal.
anything works, but happy to be here hanging out with you. It's always a blast talking about our favorite television shows, where not only was this really fun from just like I like picking a list and talking about TV, but
Yeah.
this was a really cool year where we went from two people who knew each other's names on social media to really good friends. And it happened because we like each other. We have similar morals. We get along really well. But the friendship was really on the back of all these TV shows we talked about.
Yeah.
It grew from our common interests and getting to talk about these shows together. And some of them where we're on the same page and we're locked in and we're just bouncing off on one another. Sometimes where we really disagreed and didn't feel the same way and clashed until we came to an understanding. And, that's friendship.
I love our little chats about pop culture and other things. Before we get out of here, please let the people know where they can find you, what you got going on, and what's up with Agents of Fandom.
We got a lot of exciting stuff coming for Agents Fandom. A lot of exciting stuff that we just finished. Talking about Percy Jackson every week. We did a breakdown for every episode of Pluribus. Next on the docket, we are going to be breaking down Wonder Man, and we have some interviews for that coming up. We might have some interviews for Percy Jackson and the Olympians coming up. And so a lot of really, really fun stuff there. 2026 is just going to be crazy. At Agents Fandom on TikTok and Twitter, Agents of Fandom everywhere else. You can find us on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts.
But if you are already following Agents of Fandom, I'll link everything down below so you can make sure you go and do that. If you want to support the podcast, all our links are on metalcorenerds.com. You can find them on one easy place. And if you want to follow me on my personal account, which is at SeanXMod on Instagram and Twitter. Until next time, see you later, nerds.